And welcome back to Capitol Tonight. Well, this year was definitely a good year to be a Republican when it comes to the House of Representatives. The GOP rode a political wave, gaining 63 seats during the November elections, and roughly 10% of those pickups took place right here in New York. It was all part of a strategic plan by the National Republican Campaign Committee, where they actually assigned one person to specifically coordinate efforts in New York State, despite the fact that it is so Democrat-dominated here. And that man was Bob Honold. He's joining us from Washington, D.C. tonight. Bob, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Liz. Great to be on the show.
And it is good to have you. So what's funny about this is that when you suggested that New York could be a place where people could pick up seats, where Republicans could pick up seats, you were almost laughed out of the room.
The motion was certainly met with a lot of skepticism. We've had our fair share of struggles in the Republican Party in the state of New York in the past, but you know, with the policies of the Democrat Congress under Speaker Pelosi, the changing political environment, the economic troubles, and some of the votes that were cast by a lot of the incumbent Democrat House members, there was no shortage of opportunity. Just a matter of identifying the right candidates, cultivating them, and then going out and selling the fight, getting people to believe that despite what may be happening in some of the statewide races, there really were very good pickup opportunities. We had a great crop of candidates, and that there was potential to win seats in 2010.
I don't know actually that people really understand how significant this is. I've actually said it on the show before, but New York, in New York, which is really such a Democrat-dominated state, that it's almost just viewed as sort of a place where Republicans can't succeed at all, and they certainly didn't succeed in any of the statewide races. The Republicans won 6 seats. That's more than any place else in the nation. Is that correct?
That's correct. We picked up 6 seats, meaning that we took over the control of 6 seats from Democrat to Republican. It is the most in the nation. Pennsylvania and Ohio each had pickups of 5. But what's unique there in Pennsylvania and Ohio is that they had very competitive statewide elections that were won by a Republican. Senator Toomey is going to be sworn in Pennsylvania as a senator. There's a new Republican senator and a new Republican governor in Ohio. Really, without that happening in the state of New York, we were able to put 8 or almost 10 House seats in play, ultimately flipping 6 of them, nearly flipping a 7th in New York, 1 down on Long Island. I don't think there's anyone out there that thought that the state, of all the 50 states, accounting for the single most pickups would be New York. And Liz, the point that you make about New York is correct. My hope is that it's just correct in the past tense. New York had been very difficult terrain for Republicans to win in. We did lose a lot of seats at different levels, but this potentially could be the beginning of things changing, the sign of new opportunity for Republicans going forward. But in any case, it was the single biggest contributor to the takeover of the House.
What do you think the key to that is going to be actually going forward? Because, you know, what we're seeing here is Andrew Cuomo trying to do this, the governor, who's a Democrat, obviously, doing this post-partisan thing where he's talking about reaching across the aisle, he's talking about working with Republicans, but you actually are seeing, or at least during the campaign, I talked to a lot of the successful GOP House candidates, and they talked about rolling back things that Barack Obama had done, chiefly health care, and now there's a fight about it. Although there was some nonpartisan, if you will, pragmatism and working together during the not-so-lame duck session between the Republicans and the president. But do you think the polarized route is going to be not the way to go going forward in order to retain seats in states like New York?
Well, I think it's less a matter of polarization and more a matter of effective and accurate representation. I've been meeting with the incoming class of freshmen from New York and other states and letting them know, which is they're very receptive to, that representative is not just their title, it's their job description. A lot of them did win because their voters were very unhappy with the votes taken by a lot of the Democrat members. They were very unhappy. I've been through all of their polling in every pocket of New York with the health care vote. Look no further than Michael Arcuri in New York 24, who voted for the health care bill the first time around, heard outrage from his constituents in upstate New York, and then voted with the Republicans the second time around. There was really widespread bipartisan opposition to a bill. Just because it's opposition doesn't mean it doesn't have to be done in a bipartisan manner, and that's what we saw in the last Congress. I think that going forward, people are going to be very mindful of what's most important to the people in their district, and they're going to vote accordingly. And as for Governor Cuomo, I think you saw in his opening remarks and in what he seems to be doing in his first 100 hours during the kind of honeymoon phase, he sounds an awful lot like a conservative. He sounds an awful lot like a Republican, and I think that the more he emulates a Chris Christie type of northeastern fiscal conservative Republican, the more he's going to stay in high favor with a lot of New Yorkers, and in my opinion, ultimately, take my partisan hat off, the more effective and successful he's going to be, which is something I think every New Yorker wants and needs at this point.
Now, Bob, actually, you're a New Yorker. You're originally from Syracuse. And there's been a lot said about the state of the GOP in New York that is really perhaps not so fantastic. There was a lot of infighting. Certainly the top of the ticket with Carl Palladino probably did no favors for the other statewide candidates. That would be Harry Wilson for state comptroller and Dan Donovan for attorney general. The state Senate flipped back, but only by 2 seats. Why was it that you were able to succeed, that those House candidates were able to succeed and get out from under the controversy that Carl Palladino brought to the ticket?
Well, first and foremost is we had some very, very good candidates. Chris Gibson, Michael Grimm, and the rest of them ran professional campaigns. They were on message. They connected with voters. And furthermore, we were able to take the votes that were cast by those incumbent House Democrats in upstate New York, by Dan Maffei in Syracuse, by Michael R. Curie in Utica, by McMahon and by Chris Murphy, and we were able to communicate the implications of those votes to the taxpayers of those districts, and they were able to be effective. Now, that was a challenge that the statewide candidates didn't meet, that they needed to get to and weren't there. There were a lot of voters especially in upstate New York, who voted for Governor Cuomo, but voted for the Republican House member, and they split the ticket. That was something we knew we had to have in order to be effective and win, and it was something that happened all across the state.
And how much of that do you think of the problems with the statewide candidates was due to the fact that the state party had internal fighting and there were questions about the leadership of Ed Cox? And going forward, are you concerned about the state of the New York GOP?
Well, I'm concerned about the state of the New York GOP because we don't have any statewide elected office holders. Senator Gillibrand is going to be up on the ballot again in 2012. I think there's tremendous opportunity, but we've got to do a better job of getting through the candidate selection, nomination, primary process more cleanly, so that there is a unified front with a candidate who has a apparatus around them that can lend them to be successful in running against some of these blockbuster Democrats. When you talk about Senator Schumer and Senator Gillibrand, we've got to come together as a state more. But I think there are hopefully some changes being made, and that the cultivation of the farm team is better now than it had been in the past. We do have a House delegation of 8 now. We will have control of the Senate in Albany. There are some very strong county executives throughout the state who can band together, who can unify a team, hopefully, behind a candidate and make a real election about getting Republican representation for New York. Look no further than the U.S. Census. So we just had the reapportionment process, which is going to be the gateway to the redistricting process.
Right, and you might actually lose 2 of the seats that you just gained. I mean, definitely the state will, and one of these guys that you just picked up might end up gone.
Well, I think the more important question is, why did we lose 2 seats? New York is supposed to be a great state. It always has been. And census after census, every decade, we continue to bleed seats out of the state. And the reason is because people are leaving, because jobs are leaving. It is not an attractive business climate. Property taxes, as Governor Cuomo pointed out in his first 100 hours, are unreasonable. It's simply more appealing for people to leave the state. That has got to change. The reapportionment process, like it or not, is a mini competition among the states. And the states that lose House reps are the losers. The states that gain House reps, they're the winners. New York losing 2 seats is coming in right at or near dead last in this very important competition among the states.
Well, Bob, we're actually...
I think that leaves the door open for some change, for some new and fresh ideas that haven't been existent in Albany in a long time.
We are going to have to leave it there, unfortunately, because we're out of time. But we should also note that you are leaving the NRCC and going into some private consulting work, so wish you luck with that. And I want to thank you very much for joining us.
Great to be on the show. Thank you very much, Liz.
And you're clear.